I just put my head down in my hands like that, or in my arms, and I can still, it's the most incredible, haunting thing that I can hear to this day, is those final puffs of air exiting my body. And that last final puff of air just went, ah. And as that puff of air exited my body, I can still, my head was like that, I can still hear it so clearly. It's incredible. I left my body. And next thing I'm looking at is I'm looking at my legs, right? And I'm looking at my toes. And then down below me is my body. My body's lying. And I could see myself just lying on the hallway floor of my parents' house. And it was just incredible. That was just the most incredible feeling. I just took it in. I just took it in. I'm like, oh my gosh, there I am. I've died. Wow. And then I lift my head up and I start to look around my parents' house. And I realize that the roof is off my parents' house. And I'm looking at like this 3D architectural rendering of my parents' house. It was very cartoon-esque. Things take on a whole different dimension when you looking at man-made stuff through your soul's eyes, once you've left your body like that. And I was just like, wow, check that out. And I remember looking over to my parents' bedroom, the master bedroom, off to my left. And I could see both my parents lying in the bed. I can still see it clearly to this day. And there's light shining out of their bodies. And I was like, wow, look at that. My parents have got souls. Huh. Kind of a jacked up thing to say, but if you knew how brutal my childhood was, it'd be like, you'd understand why. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I went back to focusing on my body for a little bit and looking around. And as I looked over to my right, I looked further out and I realized that everything outside of my parents' house was just this inky black abyss, like this pure black darkness. And I was just like, whoa, my gosh, that's freaking amazing. Like this darkness was everywhere around. And I think this is where people get really, really petrified when they die. They see that darkness. And what that darkness is just us disconnecting from the human consciousness, the combined human consciousness that makes all this happen. And I realized that it was like it was intrinsically known inside of me. So what happened, I was like, so the only thing I'm aware of consciously is the last thing I was around, which is my parents' house. That's the only thing I knew. And I was just like, wow, and I'm processing this information. Like, it's like my body's metabolizing, or my soul's metabolizing. You can feel the information flowing through every element of your soul, the energy in it. And you're processing this information. And it's not processing here. Like I said, it's your whole body's processing this information. And I've had this feeling to look up. And as I looked up, I was like, wow, now that's amazing. There was this bright, bright light above me. And I'm looking at it. And as I went to look back down at my body, that light just went whoosh, all around me. Just completely engulfed every aspect of everything, all around. And I was just like, what is this? And it was so bright. It was this crystalline, bright, bright white light. And I'm looking around at everything, or at this light, I'm trying to figure out what it is. And you're trying, it's like it's too much for your soul to take in. And you're trying to look for something in this light, any something. And it was the first little tinge of like, not feeling too easy right now. And as I got that feeling, I started to hear this like, you know how in movies they'll have insects, thousands of insects crawling on the ground. They make that noise. That's kind of what it sounded like. I'm like, what is that? I'm looking around trying to figure out what it is, and I look down. I was like, oh my gosh. And those blades of grass just like popping up out of this light, just popping up. And every time a blade of grass popped up, it made that, and it had consciousness. That's the thing that blew me away. And it was like I felt like I was floating on every blade of grass, like it was lifting me up. And I was like, oh my gosh. And as I lifted my head up, it just, this whole world just went, and I'm just looking around and I'm just in awe of what I'm looking at. I mean, it was beautiful. It was, the colors were so crystal clear, so bright. The sounds were just unreal. It was like all your senses were 1,000-fold on fire, like everything. When the wind blew past you, it was like it was holding you and embracing you. And it was just absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. You got the sky and the clouds, and in the same position as the sun, believe it or not, there's an even brighter ball of light, and it was just emanating this energy out over everything. And I realized, that's God. Look at that. Unreal. It was just this magnificent ball of light. You just knew intrinsically that it was the life force of everything. And I saw this golden city way in the distance. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to head towards that city. I want to see what that's about. And the moment my consciousness went towards that city, my body just started to go. You weren't walking, you just started to move. You started to glide. It was like where your consciousness, where your attention flowed, where your attention went, it was like everything flowed that way, everything. And I start moving towards this city quietly, just moving along, taking everything in. And as I'm passing trees, I'm looking at the birds in the trees, and they've got bright light. It doesn't matter. It's every bird in every tree, their singing was just, it was like angels. It was just unreal. The sounds were so incredible. It was unreal. The trickling of water down a river stream. Oh my God. Everything has consciousness. And I was like, I want to go towards the city. And they said, well, you need to go back, Lawrence. And I just kind of stop and I look at them and I said, well, I don't know how I got here, so I don't know how to get back. And I start to move again, and they said, Lawrence, it's not your time. You need to go back. And I stopped and I looked at them again and I said, well, why do I need to go back? And they tell me, and say, well, you've got things that you need to do. Not learn. You've got things that you need to do. And I was like, well, like I told you guys, I don't know how I got here, so I don't know how to get back. And what is it that I need to do? And they said, we can't tell you that. You'll know it when it happens. And I still don't know. Sorry. But anyway, I start to move towards the city again. And they said, yet again, they're like, Lawrence, you need to go back. And I stop and I look at them and I say, guys, I told you, I don't know how I got here. I'm not going back. I know I'm home. I'm staying. And as I had started, so I was getting towards the end of that conversation, I started to move again. And they go, fine then, have it your way. And I was like, I stopped and I looked back, because they hadn't moved with me at that point. I stopped and I looked back and I was like, what? Because I just knew intrinsically I was in trouble. And I looked back and I was like, what? And they looked at me, both of them, and they said in unison, fine then, have it your way. And right at that point, this massive, massive hand grabbed me from behind. A massive hand. And all those feelings of love and peace and tranquility and safety, all these incredible feelings that you have on the other side just went, I can't tell you, 1,000-fold, 10,000-fold. They just went through the roof. And I was just like, oh shit. And that energy flowed through every part of my being. But the other thing that flowed through me was the power of that hand. The power was something that I've never experienced and will never experience here on this planet. It's the power that you know that if God, creation, wanted us gone, it'd be like that. Fine, you're done. Done with you guys. And as I'm just taking this in, it's just every part of my being just is experiencing this. I'm tipped over, and as I'm tipped over, everything just washes away. And I'm just railed back into my body.